Hello, friends. Welcome to the History News. We are doing a part 2, even though we are quite far into May, because we are doing them fortnightly currently on account of the fact that I am very busy. If you hear some whirring in the background, that is because I now have a fan on. Despite the fact that it's only May, it's very hot. Well, too hot for me to not have a fan on whilst having ring lights on, etc. So yes, it's and I've been at Hampton Court this week in costume, and I was really feeling the temperature over the weekend. In fact, it was very foisty in my costume, very warm indeed. If you are joining us live now and you're in the chat, welcome. Thank you so much for making it down. If you are watching on the playback, thank you for that too. Thank you for commenting in the live chat or in the comment section down below. Let's say some hellos before we jump in today's topic. I'm seeing lots of people popping up with comments. Let's go. Hello, Dorothy. Good evening. Welcome. And I've got just hopping through a few. Hello, Shane. Welcome. Emily from Albuquerque. Welcome from Albuquerque. Shannon from Guyana. Welcome, welcome. Hadrian coming to us from LA. Welcome. Good afternoon. It's 8:30 in the evening here, and afternoon for you there. Jessie's in Palm Beach, Florida. Welcome indeed. Thank you so much for joining. We've got quite a few people in, and Carve Felem, hello. Thank you so much for coming down. Shane, been a hot and humid May in these parts. That's the thing, it's the humidity. It's just been so close that unless you are in a direct breeze, if the air is still, nothing evaporates. So you're just damp all over. And when you're wearing quite a lot of padded garments, in particular, when I'm dressed as Anne of Denmark, I am wearing what we call a bum roll, which is what it's called, and it's a padded thing that makes your skirt floof out, and it's warm with that against your backside all day. Well then, oh hello, there's been a big jump there. Hello, friends. Right, so let's do the usual thing. And let's talk about what we have going on. So we do have some updates, some new news. We also have, of course, before the new news, we have repatriation and decolonization. We have one ding dong, and we do also have some events and exhibitions. I have had some problems with some of the events and exhibitions in finding the accessibility information. I don't know if some of the websites I was having to use the translate button to translate them from their original language. So it's possible that it just got mistranslated and I was missing it. It's possible that I just was looking in the wrong place. So I will, of course, link the websites of the institutions, and hopefully you will have more luck. If they don't have accessibility information and you need it, then I think that's a poor showing. And hopefully the more people like me talk about events and list the accessibility, it will mean that it's another person saying this stuff needs to be front and center on your website so everyone knows what's going on. As per, we have a link to an opera playlist. That's not the word I'm looking for. We have a link to an opera pin board, and additionally in the description box there is a numbered list. The numbers will connect to the numbers on the bottom of the slideshow slide, connect to the story. So each story on this slideshow is numbered. Those numbers relate to what you're going to see in my description box that will have links to the sites and the stories that we are looking at. I think that's everything. There are, of course, my usual caveats. None of this is intended to be a drinking game. I do not support that message. If I say the word ritual purposes, it's not a drinking game. If you want to play your own version of Dr. Cat Bingo, and you can play that however you like, but I do not endorse the message of of this being a drinking game. Let's have a little quick look. There's been some lovely comments coming in. Yes, that is the lovely costume lady who works at the palaces, she's an absolute gem, has in fact sewn little pouches that you can put an ice pack into. But I didn't feel like it was cold enough. Also, what that does mean is I will have to unlace everything to change out the ice pack. But as it gets warmer, I will definitely be doing that, because it is too hot for me to cope. Now then, let's us hop straight in with our thanks, because of course I have some lovely people who have sent me some stories for which I'm incredibly grateful. So we're going to start there, and I'm going to jump straight into the updates. We do have quite a bit to cover today, and I hope you're going to enjoy. Let's go. So I would like to say thank you to Kat, hello name twin, and thank you. I'd like to say thank you to Jessie, Joseph, Yvonne, Beccy, Norman, Mrs. Pretty's Maid, Jarrod, Karolyn, Mary, Felem, Anne, Sheri, Verity and Beth. Thank you so much. And I'm always so grateful that people take the time to find news items, think, oh, that reminds me about that woman on the internet who does those news things. Let me send it to her. It really does mean a lot. Melissa, you didn't miss last week because there wasn't one. We are currently doing these fortnightly, because with the stuff that I'm doing at the palaces, I'm short on time, and Mondays can occasionally be quite difficult. So that there was nothing to miss last week. However, if you do miss one of these, they are all linked in a playlist of history news lives from 2023. You can watch from January to present day. They'll all be there. So let us start with our first update. I sent this by quite a few people, actually. It is an update on the mysterious dodecahedrons of the Roman Empire. There's a full in-depth article, and I recommend checking out the full article. But some of the things that I wanted to just pull out is they have provided this map, which you can see in the middle, and they point out on this map all of the places where these dodecahedron have been excavated. And across the Roman Empire, as we're seeing, it does appear that they are sort of centered in one part of the map, namely northern Gaul and Roman Germany. What that means, I do have further questions. I would like to ask the researchers myself, but this is an article, so I can't. Things that I would like to ask is, and that I don't know, is what is the soil like in the areas where it wasn't found? Is there an element to which whatever the dodecahedron are made of, that the soil would not be conducive to them surviving? Is that a possibility? Or is it just that this is where they were, and so that is where they've been found? But the other thing to share is we don't know what these things are for. There's been many, many suggestions, and here is a list of potential things, potential functions that these dodecahedron could have been put to. So here we go. A specific type of dice for a game since lost to history. A magical object, possibly from the Celtic religion. A similar small hollow object with protrusions was recovered from Pompeii in a box with either jewellery or items for magic. A toy for children. A weight for fishing nets. The head of a chieftain sceptre. Feels like there's quite a lot that have been found for the head of the chieftain sceptre, but never mind. Possible, of course, maybe that's a thing. A kind of musical instrument. Interesting. A tool to estimate distances and survey land, especially for military purposes. I wouldn't know how to do that with modern equipment, so maybe that's the sort of thing that would do that. It's potentially an instrument to estimate the size and distance of objects on the battlefield for the benefit of artillery. A device for detecting counterfeit coins. That I can sort of see. Put it in the hole. Is it the right size? Has it been clipped? Mayhaps. A calendar for determining the spring and autumn equinoxes and or the optimal date for sowing wheat. Is it a candle holder? Because wax residue was found in one or two of the objects recovered. Was it a connector for metal or wooden poles, like a not scalextrics. What are those things? Meccano. Is that what Meccano looks like? My child's not old enough. It's more. It looks. Do you know what it looks like? A big stickle brick to me, kind of. I guess maybe a knitting tool specifically for gloves. We've read that before, which would explain why no dodecahedrons were found in the warmer regions of the empire. Nobody's needing knitted gloves. That's a good point. A gauge to calibrate water pipes. A base for eagle standards. Each Roman legion carried a symbolic burden of staff into battle, or potentially an astrological device for fortune telling, because inscribed on a dodecahedron found in Geneva in 1982 were the Latin names for the 12 signs of the zodiac. So on that, we've got I'm still convinced the ancient Roman played Dungeons and Dragons. Is it one of those many-sided dies? Possibly. I didn't say ritual purposes, but you're counting magical item. You can count it. You can count it. On the scepter thing, I mean, yeah, if they were making new scepters for each chieftain, but my question is, the dodecahedron all look remarkably similar. And my thought process would be, if it's something ornamental that is supposed to be for chieftains from perhaps many locations, why would they look the same as their neighbours? That's my big question. I can imagine it looking the same as your predecessor's one, but why would you make it look the same as your neighbours? That's my question. Are the openings argues from the different way of taking measurements? I mean, I haven't seen one in close up. Or all the way around. But I suppose they are, all of those holes are different sizes, aren't they? Interesting. Do you know what? Maybe it's for pasta. One of those things. This is for 3 people pasta. This is for 1 person pasta. Maybe that's what it is. So they haven't found it all over the Roman Empire, though. Exactly. Maybe they're not Roman, but Gaulish, Gallic, but not used until the time of the Roman Empire. It's there's an assumption that it's Roman, but not necessarily, right? Interesting. So if we find out more information, I will of course update further on the dodecahedra. But as it stands, there's a lot of ideas of what it can be, and not a lot of solutions. Update number 2. Update the second, and this is the final update before we move on to the repatriation news. We were talked about this Hebrew Bible, 1,100-year-old Hebrew Bible that was located some months ago. I can't quite remember which month we talked about it, but we did talk about it previously. It's called the Codex Sassoon, a leather-bound, handwritten parchment volume containing a nearly complete Hebrew Bible. It was purchased by former US Ambassador to Romania, Alfred H. Moses, on behalf of the American Friends of the ANU, and donated to ANU Museum of the Jewish People in Tel Aviv, where it will join the collection. This is according to Sotheby's. This Codex Sassoon sold for $38 million in New York on Wednesday, which is, I mean, it's an incredible document, an incredible text. That is an incredible amount of money. Justifiable, I suppose, when we're thinking about the sorts of the prices that these things, that other texts of similar antiquity and also rarity have gone for. This text had been displayed at the ANU Museum prior to this auction, and now it's being handed back to that. Sotheby's Judaica specialist Sharon Lieberman Mintz said that this price tag, which includes the auction house's fees, quote, reflects the profound power, influence, and significance of the Hebrew Bible, which is an indispensable pillar of humanity. It's one of the highest prices for a manuscript to be sold at auction. Apparently in 2021, a rare copy of the US Constitution sold for $43 million. Leonardo da Vinci's Codex Leicester sold for $31 million in 1994, which is apparently around $60 million today. It's thought that this Codex Sassoon was fabricated sometime around 880 and 960, and it's named after the person who purchased it in 1929, David Solomon Sassoon, who was apparently the son of an Iraqi Jewish business magnate who filled his London home with a collection of Jewish manuscripts. His estate was broken up after he died, and the codex was sold by Sotheby's in Zurich in 1978. And now, of course, it's back on sale once more. This is on display. It's going to be on display at the ANU Museum. So if anybody does get a chance to go and check that out, do let us know what you think of it. And let's have a chat about it if you do get a chance to see it. Oh, Yvonne, I'm incredibly sorry to read about your loss. And I'm very sorry about your mother passing away. And I hope that her memory will be a blessing. I'm very sorry to read that. Do take care of yourself. Take all the time you need. Sending you lots of love. Let's head on to the repatriations. Unsurprisingly, we have news from the British Museum. This is interesting because the UK government and the British Museum were apparently at odds over what to do with the Parthenon marbles. This is coming to us from declassified documents. These documents are talking about information that was going on in 1983. And it's about the question about where the marble should reside, because the Greek culture minister, Melina Mercouri, visited London in that year. And it said, quote, her colourful personality and romantic cause attracted considerable interest and media coverage. So the government is already feeling clearly a little bit itchy about that. It seems we are told that worry over losing the debate was prevalent in the document. There is a quote that Mercury, quote, undoubtedly stole the limelight from her protagonist, who is at that time David Wilson, who was the then director of the British Museum. We have Mercury arguing that the marbles are, quote, an integral part of the monument that represents the national spirit of Greece, that they should not be dismembered. And the officials at the Foreign Office determined that she had, quote, won the argument hands down. Let's bear in mind, this is the 80s. This is the 80s. It's as a British person, this colourful personality, I think perhaps the closest equivalent would be a Southern woman saying, well, bless her heart. that is what it means, I think. The fabulously named Peregrine Rhodes, who the British ambassador in Paris, added that, quote, arguments put by Wilson are likely to be counterproductive. To fudge the issue could only store up trouble for the future. So they know what's going on. The John McCrae, the Foreign Office head of cultural relations, noted in the report more than 40 years ago that, quote, the problem seemed to me to be one that would be with us for some time to come. We had to live with it and, as far as possible, contain it. Well, babes, you've failed. You've not contained it. It's spilled over, and everyone's now looking at you as the final holdout. This is the final countdown. This is the final countdown. You've been shooting the breeze about this since the 80s. This argument and this precise discussion that we are still having has been happening since before I was on Earth. Like this, come on now. Wow. Teresa, thank you so much for that super sticker. It's incredible. Thank you. I'm incredibly grateful. Thank you very much. Thank you. The argument about trying to contain it is wild. The report also recorded the sentiment that Brian Cook, who is the British Museum curator of classical antiquities, that he apparently was just as ineffective at debating Mercury as Wilson had been. These are intelligent, educated men. Is it perhaps the fact that you're asking them to debate something that has no ground. It didn't have ground in the 80s. They should have been handed back at that time. And so it's very hard for these accomplished men, who I'm sure they were, to argue the point because it has no foundation. To that point, McRae wrote that, quote, "It's a pity that the British Museum does not make a more effective defence of their claim of the marbles. The BM should remember that what Parliament giveth, Parliament taketh away." Well, interesting. Former Labour Arts Minister Hugh Jenkins proposed amending this act. So this is the act, the British Museum Act, to allow deaccessioning in May of 1983 ahead of Mercurie's visit. This amendment was opposed by the Conservative Party. The Arts Minister Paul Shannon noted in a Foreign Office file, the marbles return would, quote, "start a process of piecemeal breakup of the British Museum's collections." 5 months later, the Greek government filed a formal claim for the return of the Parthenon marbles. This has been going on for decades. Decades. When you see it laid out like this, and the fact that the same gosh darn arguments are being rolled out, it's quite frustrating for me, and I'm sure for all of you reading this, I find it. I cannot believe that we're still having this conversation. This article ends with, "As of right now, there is no plan for the British Museum to return the Parthenon marbles, although it has been reported that the trustees are now open to a long-term loan in exchange for the loan of other Greek artifacts." On that note, let's see. Greece and the British Museum may have found a win-win solution for the Parthenon marbles, just don't call it a loan. Greece's Prime Minister had hinted that in an interview about a possible solution to this conflict, but he refused any resolution that would acknowledge the Brits' ownership of the works by calling their travel to Greece a loan. Quote, "We will never recognise that these sculptures are owned legally owned by the British. I wouldn't like to comment publicly on the discussions that we've had. I would just like to say that without changing our fundamental position about the ownership of the sculptures, we're trying to explore a possible win-win proposition that would work for both sides." A British Museum spokesperson told ArtNet in January that the two parties were working on a solution that the museum deemed constructive. Okay, cute. This statement came after the Telegraph reported, or as we tend to call it in this country, the Torygraph. The Telegraph reported that the museum's chairman, former MP George Osborne, had drafted an historic deal with Greece to possibly return the treasures in a cultural exchange that would effectively be a loan agreement. However, they won't display them as a loan. No, Mitsotakis said, "The word loan is not part of what I consider a win-win solution." The issue's been on hold because Mitsotakis is running for election once again. He has said, "Should we be re-elected, I'm looking to pick up again the momentum and build on the progress that we have made." Of course, other institutions have been more accommodating to these calls for return, including Pope Francis, who ordered the Vatican Museum to return 3 marble fragments from the Parthenon in what he called a donation. Now, that does, if you can donate something, there is a specification there, I think, that you own it. It's not a loan. A donation, though, implies a gift. And before the gift is given, presumably it belongs to the giver. And even if it's being held for the recipient to take, but nevertheless, there is a transfer of ownership there. So if Mitsotakis is willing and able to accept from the Vatican a donation, then maybe those are the terms that we're going to be seeing. I don't know. I don't know how we're going to get a win-win, because it seems like the British Museum has backed themselves into a corner on this one. I feel, and they've been doing it. They've been digging this hole since 1983 at least. It is unspeakably wild to me that that's the case. Carrying on with the British Museum, this is an interesting one, and I'm not quite sure 100% what I make of it. But the headline reads, British Museum drops reference to the Rosetta Stone from the title of major refurbishment plans. The British Museum has quietly dropped the title Rosetta Project from its ambitious plan to redisplay the entire permanent collection. Although no reason for the change has been given, presumably it was seen as insensitive to refer to an object that some believe should be restituted to Egypt. The development project will now be referred to by the more anodyne title of Master Plan, which kind of sounds evil to me. Kind of sounds evil, if I'm being honest. The announcement on the master plan is expected in the coming weeks. Unconfirmed reports suggest that it could eventually cost up to £1 billion, making it by far the most expensive museum project ever undertaken in the UK. There are two principal reasons for the master plan. I'm not wrong. Does that not kind of give off like in a bunker fighting James Bond? I've got a master plan. It involves the Rosetta Stone. Like, oh dear. I don't think so. There is a British actor waiting to play that Bond villain imminently, and he's going to be called like Captain Rosetta or something. These principal reasons. First, the mainly pre-1914 building is badly in need of a thorough upgrade. Second, many of the displays are outdated and need to be refreshed and rethought. It's likely to shift the museum's focus slightly away from Europe and the Mediterranean to a more global presentation. What? Of the stuff you've already got that you shouldn't have? Or are you going to go take more? You can't be taking more, right? Surely. Work on the galleries will be tackled on a staggered basis, hopefully leaving most of the collection on view. It's likely to take many years to complete, probably a decade or two. Well, don't get too attached, because I think that by the time good Lord, I hope that by the time a decade is up, we will not still be. I really hope that my son does not become a history YouTuber and have to look back on these discussions and maybe rewatch my videos. I'm being arrogant there. He won't rewatch me. I'm his mother. I will be criminally boring. But I really hope that when my son is potentially doing the family job, is this going to be a family industry? Do you know what? I'm rambling. That he will not be having these same conversations about the British Museum. My Lord, I really hope. Yeah, it does. Rosetta Stone does sound like a bit of a Bond girl name. She definitely has elaborate hair with a weapon in it. Like, she's got one of those ponytails. It's got like the it's made of the balls, and it could just bang bang knock you out. I think I'm making that out. Can a load of objects ever be worked out? I think a load of objects can be worked out, but it's a bit rude to claim that you're loaning objects to people you stole them from. That's the issue, is that Greece is not going to accept it as a loan because it's theirs. That's like me going, this is my mug, and you walking in and taking it off me and going, don't worry, I'll loan it back to you. You can't loan it back to me. It's mine. You cannot have it and say that. Oh, my husband. Oh, my son's great grandmother. This is weird. My son's great grandmother's name was Rosemary, and her name was Stone. So that means Rosie Stone. What's happening? It's the fabric of the space-time continuum being ripped apart. Oh, wow. I'm right in there. Just when they remake The Mummy, this is our story. So, more repatriations. I thought this one was really interesting. The Premier of Queensland has promised to accompany First Nations people to the British Museum to recover artifacts. This is, friends, the pressure is really ramping up here, I think. This is, is coming. It's coming from all sides. So Queensland's Premier has vowed to accompany traditional owners to the UK if they wish to reclaim the hundreds of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander artefacts from the British Museum. Does anybody know how to get a job in repatriation? I mean, on which side? Because apparently, well, I suppose speak to if you're based in the States, go and speak to DA Bragg, my friend and yours. I wish he was my friend. I would love it. Oh no! And this is becoming very Doctor Who, very Doctor Who. Right, so the Parliament has been sitting in Cairns this week, and they have passed a watershed bill, we're told, to set up a First Nations truth-telling and healing inquiry. The Premier also says they're considering setting up an Indigenous cultural centre in Cairns. Is it Cairn or Cairns? I think it's Cairns. This special inquiry is going to run for 3 years. It will explore and report on the impact of colonisation on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. At a breakfast event this morning, local Aboriginal leader Saith Formile, known as Guju, said the thousands of weapons being stored in the British Museum should be returned to Australia. Fair. So the museum's website talks about how it's got the possession of clubs, axes, boomerangs, knives, message sticks, canoes, and more. A spokesperson for the British Museum has said that they have worked extensively with Indigenous Australians to make the London-based collection more accessible. Do you know how it would be really accessible to Indigenous Australians is if it was in Australia? Just super accessible if it was down the street from them. But okay. Quote, where communities have expressed an interest in having objects on display close to their originating community, we are always willing to see where we can collaborate to achieve this. The museum has undertaken a series of projects to identify the whereabouts of Indigenous Australian objects in museums in the UK and Ireland, with the aim of finding and documenting where, how, and why certain objects were made and collecting, while improving access to the objects. So that's not giving them back, is it? No. That's a different thing. What you're saying there. The spokesperson said about 600 spears and more than 100 shields are included in the collection. They have apparently entered the collection in a variety of ways since the founding in 1753. A lot of those ways are theft, though, aren't they? Like it's essentially in a variety of ways, and many of them are theft. Even when they were gifts under duress, were they not? So continuing on, a Guama woman, Cheryl Buchanan, was heavily involved in the development of the Path to Treaty Bill with the interim Truth and Treaty body. She said the treaty was long overdue. Quote, we're the last of the British colonies to even do a treaty. My hope is for it is that we move into a place of conciliation, that we start to look at how we mend our hearts, how we mend our minds. Today's a celebratory day. It's a brand new day for us. It was worth the fight. It was worth the struggle. The former Brisbane Lord Mayor and co-chair of the interim Truth and Treaty body, Sally Ann Atkinson, said the inquiry shows the government is serious about better understanding of the past. Part of things getting better is to understand how they were in the past and making sure they don't happen again. Quote, I would like to think that my children and grandchildren will grow up in a different place than the one I did, where I knew nothing about, the true history. Good Lord, I hope that for my children and grandchildren, if I have them. Very much so. Very much so. I mean, Debbie, do I doubt it? Yes. Have I been through everything? Is it possible that by some way, shape, or means, something there was legally acquired in a way that we all recognise. It's possible. I mean, we are talking about hundreds of looted objects. There's a chance. There's a chance that one was actually bought or gifted appropriately. It's always possible. It's always possible. I will not. I don't want to get sued. Look, basically, I don't want to get sued. Don't want to get sued. So maybe. I don't know what this means, and I'm sorry. I feel like I should. Not really trusting treaties. The city you live in is on Treaty 6 territory. I don't know what that means, and I feel like I should know what that means. Are you in the States? Is that about is that about indigenous land in the United States? If you can fill me in the comment, otherwise I will Google it later. I think she's very explicit in that the true history does involve her ancestors, our ancestors, her ancestors, my ancestors, my nation's wealth being based upon upon those thefts. Yes, I think that's what she's referencing completely. So you live in Alberta, Canada. So that's different. I understand that's different to America and different. So treaties in the States are handled by federal government. Does Canada operate in a similar way? Do you know what? I'm gonna look up those laws on my own time. I mean, I did. Yes, I did, Carol. I did do in my GCSE history. For GCSE history, we did do a bit of American history. So we did sort of Manifest Destiny, and we talked about the Battle of Wounded Knee and the treaties that were frequently broken. So yes, I am aware of that. And treaties are federal documents in Canada as well, but presumably equally ignored. Yeah. Stolen ancient tomb carvings that sat in storage at the Met Museum for decades have been returned to China. These are among 89 antiquities that were seized by the DA as part of a years-long criminal investigation into Shelby White's collection. We're talking about a pair of 7th century stone carvings that were collectively valued at around $3.5 million. This announcement comes from the Manhattan DA, who I really want to be my best friend, Alvin Bragg. He's incredible, and the work he does, as we know, is fabulous. I follow him on Twitter, and what I love is that when something comes up from him on Twitter, I'm like, oh, it's going to be about art and something that's been given back. And then I look, and it's like, no, he's just, winning everything. I mean, I don't live there, so I don't know for sure, but it looks like he's doing a very good job to me. So these pieces are thought to have been cut from a funerary platform in a Chinese tomb sometime during the 1990s, which it's just wild to me that it was still happening. Like, I think we sort of, there's a part of us that goes, well, the Victorians and the Edwardians, they did it. But no, this stuff is still happening when the Spice Girls are releasing music. Is that how I'm going to start dating time things? This is pre-Spice Girls, post-Spice Girls. What? So they were loaned to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in 1998 by Shelby White, who's on the board of trustees for the Met. This stuff runs deep. This investigation was overseen by another one of our heroes, the Antique Trafficking Unit, who is ADA Matthew Bogdanos, who is a legend. Also, in June 2021, the DA's office issued a warrant for the search of the collector's New York home, where they seized 5 artifacts. And then another search in April of 2022, 18 further objects. Upon wrapping the probe in February of this year, Bogdanos filed a statement with the New York Supreme Court stating that White fully cooperated with the investigation. Okay. The DA's office did not, quote, uncover evidence to warrant charging her with, quote, any criminal activity in connection with the purchase and possession of the antiquities. This document was countersigned by White's lawyer. I hope that means that one of the reasons why this has gone elsewhere is that she's been naming names. When asked for a comment by email, Bogdanov simply said, quote, "We did what we are legally authorised, indeed mandated to do. We conducted a criminal investigation. We seized a series of stolen antiquities, including the stunning Chinese carvings, and we repatriated them to their lawful owner, here, China." Please tell me that the reason why she is not in Club Fed is because she's named names. She's named some names. Yeah, babe. Yeah. And it's so fitting because Sheri, in her Union flag dress, she's not at sea, Union flag dress, cool Britannia rules the waves and steals everybody's stuff. So it's just it's a smorgasbord, isn't it, of stuff knitting together. Continuing with the Met, New York's Met Museum to probe possibly looted art, babes. I'm gonna go with the fact that it probably is. They have said on Wednesday that they were going to examine the provenance of several hundred or more objects that were possibly stolen from their country of origin and then return them where necessary. This move comes as Manhattan prosecutors, our friends, work to repatriate hundreds of artifacts worth millions of dollars to dozens of countries around the world. The Met's going to hire additional provenance researchers to study the museum's 1.5 million works of art. Anybody who tells me, anybody who says we cannot repatriate work because our museums will be empty, 1.5 million works of art in the Met. The idea that the British Museum is not the equal of that is unthinkable. The notion that there's any museum showing 1.5 million works of anything at one time is also ludicrous. These museums, they are hoarding stuff that no one is going to see because they've got other hoarded stolen stuff that they are fiercely displaying as if it's some kind of weird statement of intent. Quote, "We will broaden, expedite and intensify our research into all works that came to the museum from art dealers who have been under investigation." Why is this only happening now? This conversation has been, most of these pieces were acquired between 1970 and 1990. People have been in jail since time. When there was less information available and less scrutiny on the provenance of these works, no, you just didn't care because you knew. I'm sorry, they knew. Allegedly. Don't get sued. Authorities earlier this year have seized artifacts from the Met. There's 89 antiquities from 10 different countries. We're back to the Shelby White thing, a private art collector in New York and a Met trustee. Since January 2022, the DA has returned more than 950 antiquities worth over $165 million to 19 countries. Quote, "The Met has a long-standing history in the rigorous review of our collection and, where appropriate, the return of art." Citing returns, this spokesperson cites returns to Egypt, Greece, Italy, Nepal, Nigeria, Turkey, and India. It's interesting, though, how often those repatriations and returns happen after the DA, a legal official, starts sniffing around and calling you out for stolen stuff. So let's not pretend you volunteered as tribute. Come on now. Yeah. The British Museum's warehouse almost certainly looks like, in fact, did they film it there after hours? Is that what happened? That's my frustrated noise. Right. Anyway, continuing on. This is called Operation Pandora. Great name. An international effort. Sorry, I whistled there. An international effort to tackle antiquities trafficking has seized more than 11,000 stolen artifacts across Europe in the last year. This includes ancient coins, religious artifacts, and a Roman bust. Operation Pandora is an international effort that is focused on tackling the illegal trafficking of cultural goods. There have been 60 arrests, more than 11,000 objects seized, and this is reported on May the 4th. We are apparently in Pandora 7, which I'm assuming means that there have been 6 previous. So we are in version 7 of Pandora. There have been crackdowns in 14 European countries. It was led by Spanish authorities. There's checks at airports, ports, border crossings, auction houses, museums, and private residences. It was the operational phase happened between September the 13th and 24th, 2022, and it was accompanied by 2 weeks of cyber check patrols in May and October. Cyber check patrols that saw more than 4,000 stolen goods seized. So I'm assuming 4,000 stolen goods seized, cyber check patrols. Then does that mean that's online then? If it's cyber, right? Perhaps. Interesting. The artifacts that were taken into European custody included rare books, ancient coins, religious sculptures. We've got here a picture of the Roman bust there, and some of the other things we've got pictures of. So we've got on my left, your left too, I'm guessing, we have got ancient Greek coins that were seized by the police. Then we've also got on the right 100 coins seized by Romanian authorities. And then down at the bottom, this is some of the stuff found. Operation Pandora. This is a photograph from Interpol. This was seized by the Spanish authorities. So there, and we are also being told that around 130 investigations remain ongoing. So anybody who's got looted artifacts, TikTok, they're coming. So best for you, give them up. Send them back to where they came from, eh? And I think something that the next story is that, why are we talking about top men? Did they refer to them as men? Did they refer to them as men? I was seeing comments about top men. Is that a reference to something I don't understand? Maybe. This next story, this really actually struck me quite hard because I think I've made it very clear that the looting of artifacts, I find it offensive and it clearly enrages me. Oh, is the top men thing, and it's an Indiana Jones reference, right? I should have known that. But I didn't. My husband's gonna be very disappointed that I missed out on the Raiders of the Lost Ark reference. Thank you for enlightening me. So what we have here is a stolen Nepali statue. It's a long lost Varahara sculpture that resurfaced in a Hong Kong collection. Now, the reason why this struck me is because as offensive as I find the looting of goods on a cultural level, on the damage it does to the local community, on the damage it does to the artifact of, pulling it out of its context, the history that's lost by divorcing it from context. That's very, I get that's in many ways quite an ephemeral thing to be irritated by. It affects me, but this story really drove home to me that there is an individual human cost because of this selfishness. When 16-year-old Sunil Shrestha came home from festival celebrations on the early morning of August the 30th, 1995 in Dodecahedrons, Nepal, he immediately realised that something was off. He was used to sleeping in the worshipping room of the family home, sharing the space with an impressive 37-inch gilded statue of Varahara. The family had served as caretakers for the 16th century statue for hundreds of years. but now it was missing. Sunil ran to get his father, who was working with his eldest son in a restaurant 2.5 miles away. When they came back, police took Sunil and his father in for questioning. They both still bear the scars from the physical torture inflicted on them. Nepal was not yet a democracy. Instead, it was being torn apart by armed conflict between the Maoist insurgents and government forces, a period marked by human rights violation. Sunil and his father were both released, but police did not follow up on any other leads to trace who was behind the deity's theft. Because of the volume of the statue, one would need at least 2 people to carry it away. In their haste, the thieves left behind the statue's crown, aureole, and other accessories. At the time of the theft, only Sunil's mother, 7-year-old brother Anup, and grandmother were home. Clearly, the theft was staged, as the thieves knew exactly when they would be able to enter and exit the family home undetected. But because the police did not properly investigate the case, one of so many instances of cultural heritage theft during a period of extensive looting in Nepal, it's impossible to prove the family's innocence. For the past 28 years, the Shrestha family has had to bear the guilt and shame that came with the deity's burglary. Their community and extended family ousted them, accusing them of selling the statue for financial gain. On September the 15th, 2022, Lost Arts of Nepal, an activist group focusing on the identification and repatriation of foreign-held Nepali cultural objects, posted a photo of this deity in the Shrestha home. Next to it, there was a screenshot of the statue consigned to a Hong Kong-based dealer being offered for sale online. The statues were identical, except for a crown that had been replaced. The Dolokha deity had been found. And that's the thing. It's not just the item, which has clearly incredible spiritual wealth for this family, but also for this community. But the knock-on effect of this, the decades, first of all, the fact that this family bear physical scars because of somebody else's selfish actions. And on top of that, the decades of being ostracized by community, and what that means to that family. It made me really livid, really livid. Anyway, continuing on, we have an article saying that it's inevitable that India's jewels that were taken by the British Empire will be returned, according to Narendra Modi, leading writer on. So Narendra Modi is preparing the campaign. The writer is Samtham Sangera, who authored Empire Land: How Imperialism Has Shaped Modern Britain. Sathanam is a leading writer on the British Empire and has said that it's inevitable that Indian jewels and historical artifacts looted under colonial rule will be repatriated. What we are seeing, the picture we're seeing there, is that the Queen Mother's coffin and her coronation crown. In the Queen Mother's crown is the Kohinoor diamond. There was discussion that for the most recent coronation, there was some suggestion that perhaps as the Queen Mother had been crowned with this, that Queen Camilla would also be, but that is not the crown that she was crowned with. And in large part, I believe it is because of the issue over the Kohinoor. Sangera's claim followed a report in the Daily Telegraph on Saturday that India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and diplomats are shaping up for a campaign to reclaim the items in British Museum and held by the royal family later this year. This includes the Kohinoor diamond. This, I believe I've talked about it, but just for those who are not aware of the Kohinoor diamond, the story goes that it was gifted to Queen Victoria to mark the fact that she was now the Empress of India. It was a lovely little present given to her by a very happy people. What actually happened is the last Maharaja of the Punjab, who was at this time a child, his mother was imprisoned by British troops, and the Kohinoor diamond, which had come into his hands, was gifted by him, but he was a child whose mother was in jail. That boy then was connected to Queen Victoria. In fact, his daughter was born over here, Sophia Dalip Singh. She lived at Hampton Court. and she was an active suffragette. The notion that the Kohinoor was a gift is, in the loosest possible sense of that word, in the most enforced sense of that word, in the way that you could gift your purse to a mugger because they're mugging you and you can call it a present. It's that kind of a gift. I don't know what the answer is going to be. I think that and complicating the matter is, who does it belong to and where does it go? Anyway, Sangera said, quote, "Our museums and the royal family are in possession of billions of pounds worth of Indian loot. It was a systematic part of colonial rule. The royal family was given the king's share of that loot. When we annexed parts of India and Burma, which is now Myanmar, there were representatives of our museums to take things. Soldiers took loot and sold it too. It's, it's land piracy. But the fact that there was the foresight to bring over museum executives, they know what they're doing. It's not just the financial value of these items, it's also the emotional and the religious value. These countries are future superpowers already. They are not going to shut up about it. Quite right too. Modi is encouraging school classes to be taught in Hindi and other languages rather than English. India's parliament is being rebuilt, with its MPs due to move out of the Edwin Lutyens designed colonial era building, and roads named after British monarchs have been changed. The Telegraph reported that Govind Mohan, Secretary for the Indian Ministry of Culture, is saying that returning antiquities is going to be a key part of future policy. Pardon me, sorry. Quote, "It's of huge importance to the government. The thrust of this effort to repatriate India's artifacts comes from the personal commitment of the Prime Minister, who has made it a major priority. The issues previously received attention alongside disputes that include the potential return of the Elgin marbles to Greece. The Conservative Prime Ministers and Culture Secretaries have rejected calls for artefacts to be returned. In 2013, David Cameron said he did not think the return of the Kohinoor was the right approach. The Kohinoor is controversial in its own right, with multiple claims on its ownership. Sangera agrees, quote, "I think it's impossible. There will be anger by the Sikhs if the Hindu nationals get it. It is unsolvable." I mean, it's well above my pay grade. It's well above my pay grade, but yes, repatriations in an ideal world are should be, I believe, a source for the common good. Cheryl, the Elgin marbles don't belong to England. They were in England. That's all that's happened. Just because somebody who burgles your house doesn't have your TV belong to you. They're just holding stolen goods. The thing about the Kohinoor is the last thing that we need to do is cause more unrest and distress, but we can't ignore the question. That's the thing. History is definitely messy. It's very, very messy, and I think we spent a long time in the eras of colonialism, in the eras of missionary work, attempting to convert the world, etc., in thinking and assuming that our viewpoint was right, in that our paternalism and our paternalistic attitude was the way to live, regardless and irrespective of culture, attitudes, things that were already working. But I think however this is approached, the notion that we get to continue to be moral arbiters in it is, I think, inherently problematic. So that's the way I sort of see it. Sydney's Art Gallery of New South Wales is repatriating an 800-year-old temple carving to Nepal. This, we're seeing the picture here of the 13th century temple in the Kathmandu Valley. They have the Art Gallery of New South Wales has announced on Friday it's going to return an intricately carved temple strut or tunala depicting a Hindu goddess to Nepal. We aren't, Cheryl, we aren't playing finders keepers. That's not what's going to happen. We aren't going to, there is no sense of it that possession is 9/10 of the law. We aren't playing that game. They don't belong to England. They are just being held in England. That's what's going on there. This strut was looted from a 13th century temple in Lalitpur, which is a city southeast of Kathmandu. It's going to be returned in a ceremony attended by Australia's Assistant Foreign Minister, Tim Watts, and the Patton Museum at the Patton Museum in Kathmandu on Tuesday. This is, we're told, a significant gesture in line with Australia's commitment to the highest standards of ethical practice and international obligations. The return of this tunala to Nepal will further strengthen the bilateral relationship. The strut was carved in the form of a tree god, and it's one of 6 struts that were stolen in 1975 from the shrine. And it's thought to have been stolen after Mary Shepherd Slusher, a scholar of architectural studies and Nepalese cultural history, identified the woodwork at the temple, during which time she photographed the pieces. Shortly after her visit, the ornate woodwork pieces went missing. Thousands of important artifacts were stolen and illegally smuggled out of Nepal during the 1980s, and in recent years there have been extensive grassroots campaigns to see these artifacts, many of which now reside in major museums, returned to the country. This strut was obtained by the Art Gallery of New South Wales in 2000, and we've got a picture of it. Yeah, no, we're done. We're not going to, no, enough of that. Antiquities that passed. So this, we have here that this was passed through the hands of Douglas Latchford. So it's come to the museum in 2000 when a Australian British art collector, Alex Biancardi, bequeathed 79 sculptures to the institution. Biancardi was a collector of South Asian art who is connected to the disgraced antiquities dealer Douglas Latchford. That name has come up again and again. Antiquities that passed through Latchford's hands have repeatedly been found to have been looted and in recent years repatriated. In February, 70 gold relics that were connected to Latchford were repatriated to Cambodia. We've talked about that, I believe, in the past. The museum was informed in 2001 the strut was stolen, but it took many years to establish the provenance and to confirm that it was, quote, illegally removed. This temple has had replicas of the struts installed in 1992, and it's possible that the repatriated strut will be reattached upon return, but, quote, that is a decision for professionals in Nepal. On the topic of, I'm more than happy to have people disagree with me, and that's fine. But there are certain issues that I just think we don't need to be walking down a path towards, and the Middle East situation, whether we're going to have a two-state solution or whatever's going to happen, it's not something for the history news. It's ongoing. It's a tragedy on all sides, and I'm not going to have that weaponized in my comment section. Just not going to do it. Cylon family, thank you very much. People are fully entitled to their opinions, and I'm always very, very loath to remove people from this chat or to block people, but I don't I don't want to cause upset to other people. That's the real thing. Philip, everything I've seen about DA Bragg is that I think he's pretty impressive. I'm not saying I don't personally know him. He's not actually my friend, but I think you can mind your manners actually, and you can speak with decorum and class, or you can go away. Yes, Jessie. I think that. I mean, look, I'm not a politician of the. I'm not a politician of the of. Sorry, I'm not a historian of the 20th or 21st century. Well, I don't think many people are historians of the 21st century because it's fairly recent. It's not my period, and there's a reason for that. I like to talk about stuff that's a bit older, and thus let's not cause too much distress for people who are still living and dealing with it. This is an interesting one. The British heirs of slavery are trying to make amends for past wrongs. Here we have Laura Trevelyan, I believe is how you pronounce her name, who co-founded a group called the Heirs of Slavery. Other members of this include David Lascelles, who is the Earl of Harewood, second cousin of King Charles. We've got Charles Gladstone, who is a descendant of the 19th century Prime Minister William Gladstone, and Alex Renton, journalist and author. Trevelyan says, quote, the purpose of it is to encourage other people with this history to acknowledge it and for Britain to learn from its past. Members of the group have been calling for King Charles to apologise for the royal family's links to slavery. For example, in the 19th century, the Royal African Company was the vehicle by which enslaved people were shipped from West Africa to the Caribbean. It was happening in the name of the Duke of York, who then went on to become James II. Enslaved people were branded with DY for Duke of York. And indeed, King Charles announced last month that he would take part in independent multi-year research projects on the royal family and slavery. So by 2026, it will reveal the full extent of the royal family's links to slavery. In a statement, Buckingham Palace spokesperson said that the king takes the issue profoundly seriously. So that's yeah, that's the thing. Look, people can have their opinion, but it's also my channel, and I'm don't get to insult me. I find it insulting to be called ignorant. I believe that I have, to my best of my ability, I believe that I have educated myself on the various things and formed an opinion based upon that. So I am entitled to say what I want as well. Continue on. However, the group's called on British government to apologise and give reparations, but it hasn't been receptive. Rishi Sunak, Prime Minister, pushed back against pressure from the group and others, saying, quote, trying to unpick our history is not the right way forward, and it's not something we'll focus our energies on. What I think our focus should now be is, of course, understanding our history and all its parts, not running away from it. But right now, making sure we have a society that's inclusive and tolerant of people from all backgrounds. Perfect. So in that case, Rishi, could you please tell the Department for Culture, Media and Sport that they should stop threatening the people who are curators of publicly funded institutions, so that that they have to toe your party's line? Maybe have a word with them. While some in Britain's Labour Party support reparations, it's not party political policy. Opponents have said that the cost of reparations could spiral in the many billions of pounds and perhaps much more. Some lawmakers in Jamaica are seeking £7 billion or $13 billion. The critics also argue that public money could be spent in better ways to achieve racial equality. Fair point. For sure, it's full of potholes, Trevelyan says, but again, she points to what CARICOM has proposed for European governments. The Caribbean nations have been very clear, a 10-point pound for reparations, which is their ask of former colonial powers, based on the fact that there was a system of wealth extraction and the Caribbean was left with nothing, literally nothing. These countries are, quote, asking for debt forgiveness and investment in health and education from the former colonial powers. It would hopefully go some way towards healing Britain too. I mean, we don't live in a post-racial society. Any claim that we do is disingenuous. More reparations. San Diegans return pre-Hispanic artifacts to Mexico after inheriting them from family. Two San Diego families returned 64 archaeological artifacts to Mexico after they were passed down to them by their relatives. Yeah, just popping up. Yeah, debt forgiveness is the least. I agree. Pretty much, the bar is on the floor. The bar is on the floor. So these families, according to the donors, the artifacts have been in their families for years. They never thought they had archaeological value in Mexico's history. This is the first or second time that someone from San Diego has brought pieces to the consulate, said San Diego resident Pete Mechales, who said he's surprised by how few citizens return such items. Piece by piece, bits of Mesoamerican history and post-classic periods are evident in the artifacts that were returned. It's a happy coincidence that these two San Diegans shared their interest in returning these objects. Norm Worthman, a Vista resident, and Pete, a Point Loma resident, said their families passed the objects down and they felt they should be donated to a museum in the region. In both cases, the locals were directed to the Mexican consulate in San Diego. According to Mayrea Lopez, who is the director of heritage for the Americas Museum, she was stunned by what she found. They are pre-Hispanic artifacts with high historical value that have always belonged to the Mexican nation. I wish I knew more about them, Worthman said. It was a collection acquired from my father when I was a little boy. In the case of Pete and his sister Christine, they said their mother bought the pieces for about £2,000 as a favour to a woman who needed money for surgery. The story told by my mum is that his cousins were digging up a house. I don't know if they were building it, but they found these pieces one by one. I'm sure that there are many collections like these in San Diego and throughout the United States. So hopefully whoever sees this report is inclined to do the same if they hold any. And presumably, if you don't know what you have, until you see pictures like this, you might go, hang on, that looks like the thing that's on my mantelpiece, or that looks like the thing that's on the windowsill. Maybe this, me being thinking kindly, maybe this is something that could be helpful and useful if I just get it checked. Say something, see something, just get it checked. I mean, look, I'll see you on Wednesday for History After Dark. By the way, we just tipped over 1,000 subscribers on History After Dark, which is the other channel that I work on with my pals, Philippa and Catherine. We've just hit 1,000 subscribers. If you don't know what History After Dark is, I'm there with two of my pals. I don't swear on this channel, but I do there. Oh boy. And it definitely airs out my anger. So if you don't mind potentially seeing me in a smutty, vulgar mood weekly, then check out History After Dark. Check out History After Dark. Oh, Jarrod, yeah, I mean that's gonna. No, don't do that because you'll be absolutely hammered. Because for two reasons. The type is small and I'm dyslexic, so nope. I mean, but yeah, it does make me less. It also makes me less angry. So you're right. Even if it wasn't directed to me, you are correct. We need a new antiques roadshow that looks at the odd little things you have in your house, see if they have archaeology. See, words are difficult. If they have archaeology or cultural historical significance. What we need is a repatriation roadshow. Like, did your ancestors do a looty loot? Bring it to this lovely house and we'll find out. Full disclosure, and thank you for everybody who is saying they're subscribing. Just as a full disclosure, I am there's a dark recess in my mind where the filth lives. So if you like vanilla me, full warning, content warning. There are two different. This is professional me. What you get on Wednesdays is gutter me. So you've been warned. Those are the repatriations. Goodness me, we're an hour and 15 minutes in. We've got some new news. Let's do this thing. Some of the first humans in the Americas came from China, a study has found. There has been a new genetic studies that's found that some of the first arrivals came in the last ice age. These are some of the first humans to arrive in the Americas, and they included people from what is now China. There were two distinct migrations during and after the last ice age. The people in charge of this study, quote, "Our findings indicate that besides the previously indicated ancestral sources of Native Americans in Siberia, the northern coastal China also served as a genetic reservoir contributing to the gene pool." It's been added that during the second migration, the same lineage of people settled in Japan, which could explain similarities in prehistoric arrowheads and spears found in the Americas, China, and Japan. This is because there was once a land bridge that existed in the Bering Strait that linked modern Russia and Alaska. Research that's been done from the late 2000s onwards has signaled that a more diverse sources of age from Asia could be connected to an ancient lineage responsible for founding populations across the Americas, including Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Ecuador, Mexico, and California. This is known as D4H. This lineage is found in the mitochondrial DNA, which is the mummy DNA, not mummified people, but your mummy's DNA, right? Mitochondrial, which is inherited only from mothers and is used to trace maternal ancestry. There's been a 10-year hunt for D4H, combing through 100,000 modern and 1,500 ancient samples across Eurasia, and it landed on 216 contemporary and 39 ancient individuals who came from this lineage. They've analysed mutations over time, and they have reconstructed D4H's origins and expansions, and there's been two migration events. First, between 19,500 and 26,000 years ago, during the last glacial maximum. Words are hard. The last glacial maximum, when ice sheet coverage was at its greatest and climate conditions in northern China were probably inhospitable. And the second occurred during the melting period between 19,000 and 11,500 years ago. Increasing human populations during this period might have triggered migration. It was during this second migration that scientists found a surprising genetic link between Native Americans and Japanese people. In the melting period, a subgroup branched out from northern coastal China to Japan, contributing to Japanese people. The study found that this chimes with the archaeological similarities between ancient people in the Americas, China, and Japan. The strength of the study was the number of samples that they discovered and the complementary evidence from Y chromosomal DNA showing that male ancestors of Native Americans lived in northern China at the same time as female ancestors. This makes the researchers confident in their findings. However, we don't know in which specific place in northern coastal China this expansion occurred and what specific events promoted these migrations. More evidence, especially ancient genomes, are needed to answer these questions. Some discussion about this is by no means my understanding, but I from things that I have seen and tried to educate myself on, of course, the hair samples and other things that are stored in collections that were taken from Indigenous communities is going to be a very sore point, as are questions of things, I suppose, like blood quantum and everything like that. So, yes, I can understand why that would be very problematic. And I'm sure there's also more to it than that. That is my very basic understanding based on the things that I have been able to uncover as somebody who does not come from that community. 300,000-year-old footprints have been uncovered in Germany. An international team of researchers has found the oldest known human footprints from Germany at the, this is going to be a tough one, the Schöningen, maybe. Well, I'm sorry. Paleolithic site complex, which is in Lower Saxony. These are fossilized hominin footprints dating to some 300,000 years ago, which is probably, they think, left by members of the species Homo heidelbergensis. 2 of the 3 prints appear to belong to young individuals. Is that about small feet? Is that that's the only way they'd know that? That's the only way they'd know that, right? Surely. The University of Tübingen archaeologist Jordi Singrali said that around the hominin prints, the team identified tracks belonging to the extinct elephant species Paleoloxodon anticus. There is one track from a rhinoceros, which is the first footprint of either of these Pleistocene species ever found in Europe. Oh, my husband's messaging me. Schöningen, I love you. I love you too, darling. He is watching this while he cooks me dinner. So there is a scholarly article about the research that you can read. It's linked, and also this article has more on the particular species of human or hominin that left it, called Our Tangled History. So Mr. Dr. Cat with the safe, when I tell you that this man, in the well over a decade that we have been together, has done so many times saved me. Jarrod, this is not a drinking game. My failure to do words is not a reason to drink. I do my best to do pronouncing, and the thing is, when I'm filming videos, I will frequently use the Google to go, how do I pronounce this? Even if it's a word I know. And let's be clear as well, like, let's never make fun of people for not being able to pronounce things. I love you. Let's not, you just blew me a kiss. Let's not make fun of people for not being able to pronounce it. I know that no one is making fun of me, but in your everyday life, because what it means is that somebody learned that word by reading. That's all it means. And I do my best. I try my best. Rhino is easier to say. I mean, I find saying rhinoceros quite difficult. It's a very chewy word. It's a very chewy word. You could say that. I'm not sure who trained whom, but we get along. We get along quite nicely. Right. So let's more words that are going to be hard for me to say. Let's go. Let's do this thing. 7,000-year-old tomb found in Oman that holds dozens of prehistoric skeletons. Now, I'm pretty sure the image I'm showing there, you can't see any. I have really limited the photographs that I'm sharing of this because I don't show human remains, and there are many. So if you do click on this article or a version of it, be warned that there are human remains photographed. This has been found. These people were buried 7,000 years ago in a stone tomb in Oman. They believe this is among the oldest human-made structures ever found in Oman. This burial is next to the coast, but it's otherwise a stony desert. The we are told that no Bronze Age or older graves are known in this region. This one, we are told, is completely unique. The work on the tomb is one of several archaeological projects in Oman that's being led by scientists from the Czech Republic. The scientists are using dating techniques provided by the Nuclear Physics Institute of the CAS, the Southern Expedition leader Roman Garber, an archaeologist and physicist with the CAS, said in a statement. The same dating techniques will also be used to learn more about the roughly 2,000-year-old rows of stone triliths that have been found throughout Oman since the 19th century. Although these triliths are only a few feet, less than 1 metre tall, and were built during the Iron Age, some recent reports compared them to England's Stonehenge. That's rare. We've not had a Stonehenge news story, so here we go. Of course it's here. We are told, and it sounds like this is really interesting stuff, it all goes to building up a better picture of what was happening in the Neolithic across the Arabian Peninsula. So Melissa Kennedy, who said that, was not involved in the latest expeditions in Oman, but she has researched mustatils, which are vast stone desert monuments of about the same age in the neighbouring Saudi Arabia. And her team has also found similar tombs where several people were buried at this time. Both finds suggesting that people were marking their territory from very early on. Quote, "These kinds of tombs give us a great insight into family relationships and how they viewed death and perhaps life after death." Look at the debate over Kennewick Man. Do I know about this? Very clear that DNA is going to be more than the words of Indigenous people in the area. I'm going to look that up. I don't think I know about this. Thank you, Beverly. Scientists have found a 7,000-year-old road buried under the sea. This has been buried under the sea in mud off the coast of Croatia. Radiocarbon dating has been done on some of the wood that was used in this road's construction that puts its date of creation to 4,900 BCE. When researchers started investigating this sunken settlement near mainland Croatia, they didn't know they were going to unearth this surprise road. It's roughly 13 feet wide and made of stone plates. And this connected the Korčula Island to an artificially made island settlement called Saline, which is now nearly 16 feet below the water's level. But they think that this was an active site about 7,000 years ago. The team who are studying this, and there are local museums and diving centres, are investigating the area, and they think that they're going to find, or they found evidence of there being more than one Neolithic settlement. Along this road, they are finding strange structures, that's a quote, and they have discovered another settlement that's nearly identical to Saline in Gradina Bay. They've uncovered artifacts, including blades and a stone axe. The Miami Herald reports that the Havar people, one of the original groups of inhabitants on the island, were living in the area during the creation of earthenware and showed an additional ingenuity by crafting a stone road to an artificial island. Korčula Island has long been known to house settlements dating back to the Neolithic period. The continued investigation of the waters off the island, however, opens up a new understanding of how settlements on and near the island may have connected differing groups of people. So I'm seeing a lot of references to Atlantis. I'm assuming that all of this stuff was once not underwater, although perhaps the struts that held the bridge up would have been, right? So it's a man-made island from 7,000 years ago. It's pretty cool. So I will keep my eyes peeled for any further information on what's going on there. Jennifer, my email address is readingthePast with drcat@gmail.com. And at some point, my husband is going to help me find a way to consolidate. We're going to do something to consolidate getting the news articles, and he's got a plan that he's explained to me. But that he will explain, and I will explain it to you once he's explained it to me. Yes, if it was a bridge crossing water, they must have put the wooden bits underwater. So they must have done some building underwater. Right? I don't know how bridge building works. So I don't know. Maybe. Anywho. Next story. These are cool. Look at them. 5,000-year-old clay figurines mysteriously hidden behind boar tusks in a Ukrainian cave. This is the Verity cave in Ukraine, and we are being told that it's ambiguous but promising information. These discoveries were made in March, and it might illuminate the Cucuteni Triptilian culture that spread over the territory in modern-day Ukraine, Romania, and Moldova for about 2 millennia. They have uncovered some burial sites, and these discoveries might shed light on burial prayers. These female clay figurines were placed in this undiscovered niche in a wall of a well-studied cave, and they were sheltered by tusks of a wild boar. Yes. The Cucuteni Triptilian culture had metallurgical skills and created pottery, farming, and keeping domestic animals in sprawling settlements that they inhabited. These pottery finds, we're told, are very rare, but the team unearthed a massive clay storage jar filled with an as yet unidentified white material. Interesting. So this cave is being described as labyrinthine. Thank you very much, Jennifer. Just seen that coming. Stretching over more than 5 miles. The cave was discovered in 1829, and it's been referred to as Pompeii on the Dniester, owing to its rich deposit of antique material. Recent discoveries have turned up 3 separate historical layers of deposits that give information on some 800 years of inhabitation. Experts believe this cave was a hiding spot during violent periods. And in fact, thousands of years later, we're told that Jewish people who were fleeing from the Nazis also used the cave as a refuge. So I'm not saying what I think the powder is. I wonder, my first thought, if it's burial, have they found some way to essentially replicate cremulation or a cremulator? Are they cremains? But maybe that's just because I've been watching too much Ask a Mortician. Possible. Very possible. But some people are going with the old marching powder. Mayhaps. This is cute. This is a Mesopotamian. So 4,500 years ago, we might have humanity's earliest kiss on record. Recent research has hypothesized that the earliest evidence of human lip kissing originated in a very specific geographical location in South Asia 3,500 years ago, where it might have spread to other regions. However, according to Dr. Troels Prank Arbol and Dr. Sophie Lund Rasmussen, in a new article in the journal Science, they have drawn a range of written sources from the earliest Mesopotamian societies where kissing was already well established 4,500 years ago in the Middle East, and probably much earlier, moving the earliest documentation for kissing back 1,000 years. Look at this lovely little sculpture of kissing people. In addition to its importance for social and sexual behaviour, the practice of kissing might have played an unintentional role in the transmission of microorganisms, potentially causing viruses to spread amongst humans. The spread of the herpes simplex virus could have been accelerated by the introduction of a kiss. The quote, there is a substantial corpus of medical texts from Mesopotamia, some of which mention a disease with symptoms that are reminiscent of the herpes simplex virus 1. It's nevertheless interesting to note some similarities between the disease known as Bushanu in ancient medical texts from Mesopotamia and the symptoms caused by herpes simplex infections. The Bushanu disease was located primarily in or around the mouth and throat, and symptoms included vesicles, is that sores? Vesicles in or around the mouth, which is one of the dominant signs of the herpes infection. If the practice of kissing was widespread and well established in a range of ancient societies, the effect of kissing in terms of pathogen transmission must likely have been more or less consistent. The study concludes that future results emerging from research into ancient DNA inevitably leading to discussions about complex historical developments and social interactions, such as kissing as a driver of early human disease, will benefit from an interdisciplinary approach. This is big science that has words that make it sound like it's made up, but I don't think it is. Particle physics and archaeology collaboration uncovers a secret Hellenistic underground chamber in Naples. This is the ruins of an ancient necropolis built by the Greeks between the end of the 4th and the beginning of the 3rd century BCE that is around 10 meters beneath modern day Naples. This is a place where there's a high population density. It's an urban area, so excavations are extremely difficult. However, there is some science. They are referring to cosmic rays and lasers. Now, we're going to get to a word that we've talked about last week, but when I saw cosmic rays, I was like, what is this? So cosmic rays and lasers, which allowed researchers to examine the underground without any need for physical excavation. This is a collaboration between particle physics and archaeology. So in collaboration with the University of Nagoya in Japan, a group of researchers from the University of Naples, Federico II, and the National Institute of Nuclear Physics used muography, this is what we talked about last time, muography to detect the presence of possible cavities in the underground of Naples' Sanita district. And one of the most significant structures discovered is a hidden Hellenistic chamber that most likely houses a burial. Now we've got the muons, right? So muography is a technology that makes use of muons, high energy charged particles produced by cosmic rays in the upper layers of the atmosphere. These muons were installed 18 meters below the Sanita district's current street level to measure muon flux for about a month. There's a technology called nuclear emulsion that records the tracks of the muons. There's photographic film involved that captures and visualizes the paths of the particles, which allows researchers to generate a radiographic image of the upper layers to observe both known and unknown structures. This muography revealed an excess of muons in the data, which can only be explained by the presence of a new burial chamber. It's thought that it measures roughly 6.5 by 11.5 feet. It's a rectangular shape, indicating that it's human-made rather than natural. And considering its depth, it's thought that it's part of an ancient Greek necropolis dating from the 6th to the 3rd centuries BCE. The researchers suspect this chamber is similar to other discoveries made in the late 1800s, such as the hypogeum of the toga wearers and the hypogeum of the pomegranates. So that's more information on muons, and I understand that is that's a scientific explanation. Yes, but different, isn't it, though? So it's like taking x-rays, and it's like, but you haven't got to put you haven't got to put the thing in the machine. The machine goes in the thing. Is that the difference? So it's not like a magnetic resonance imaging. It's not like a full body scan, because you have to put the thing inside the machine. This is the machine inside the thing. And muons. One day I'll understand. One day I didn't used to understand Wi-Fi, and now I pretend that I do. Anyway, it makes TV happen on my phone. So, yes, that's it. I don't fully get it, but I can visualize and understand the effect it has and what it can show. I don't know how x-rays work. I know it takes a picky pick of your insides and it says if something's bruck or not. But I don't know how those things happen. Steve, I think you've got a different idea about how my Rolodex looks, because I'm not mates with Brian Cox. I've not got him in my contacts. Hi Brian, could you explain what it was to me? That would be great. But if I ever got a chance to, maybe he could sit down and very patiently explain it to me. Muons are imaginary. It's secretly just dark magics that were recently discovered by child archaeologists. Fine. Sounds good to me. I also like this, that muons are like flip-flops for cows. Yeah. Yes. And also this, I mentioned history so I wouldn't have to deal with it. It's like when people ask me to do maths, and I literally just feel like saying, do you see my bookshelves? What makes you think that any part of me can do my times tables? Because I'm telling you, it's zero part of me can do my times tables. Jessie, he's also not in my phone. he's also not there. But point in my direction. Let me know. Yeah, I'm the thing in the machine. Okay. Google says one of the most fundamental subatomic particles, the most basic building blocks of the universe, as described in the standard model of particle physics. So individually, I kind of know what all of those words mean, but in a sentence, my science teachers hated me. That's never going to be the one. That's never going to be the one. That's yeah. If someone can patiently sit down with me and explain it to me like I'm 5, then maybe we'll get somewhere. Because this is too high of a level for me. I'm trying, but it's like someone trying to give me directions. If I drive it, I understand it, but the words, it feels like soup in hot soup in my brain hole. Necropolis, more necropolis-y fun times. So excavation, an Egyptian necropolis has turned up funerary artifacts from 2 distinct eras of ancient histories, both the Old and the Middle Kingdoms, as well as the late period. This is ongoing archaeological missions at the necropolis in Mir in Qizia, Egypt, which is between Cairo and Aswan. And it's thought this is going to offer a full understanding of the area's rich multicultural heritage. There's 2 layers of findings have been made in 2 distinct eras from ancient history. So the pictures that we're seeing here are part of a decayed coffin of a woman including the face, the chest area, and the palms. There is a face there. And we also have remnants from the Byzantine period, which I think some people pronounce Byzantine, but I've always heard it as Byzantine. So this is from 330 to 1453 CE, that were once monk cells, a patio, storage, and a fireplace. This is like a luxury listing. Below, jewellery, pottery, and funerary objects that date to Egypt's last epoch of pharaonic rule, the late period. This discovery, says Mustafa Waziri of the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, quote, highlights the significance of Mir during the Old and Middle Kingdoms as well as the late period. During the Old Kingdom through Middle Kingdom eras of 2300 to 1800 BCE, Mir functioned as a burial site for the ruling elite of the ancient city of Kouasse, the residents of which worshipped the Egyptian solar deity Hathor. Within the remains of the building, the team found 8 horizontal lines of prayers in supplication to early saints, which were inscribed with black ink in Coptic text next to a wall of shelves built by bygone monks. Burials abounded below, including one of an unnamed woman. There's a number of relics, including coffin fragments, a burial mask, and several human skeletons that managed to survive shoddy preservation, though pottery, engagement beads, see, I read that, I'm not quite sure what that means, and copper mirrors fared better. So we've got some jewellery beads found there. I'm going to look into what in engagement beads might mean. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So there's sort of 2 layers, and presumably a choice to repurpose the site. I'm assuming. I don't think that can be an accident, that the layers are both there, right? The later must have continued on using the site, having discovered it or always known about it. We have also got an unusual find. A pair of ancient Roman and Egyptian sculptures have been found in a small Polish village. Look at them. Aren't they lovely? We've got an Osiris figurine here being held. This is in eastern Poland. They have been studied for a year to confirm that they are authentic, and people are trying to find out how they got there, because Roman finds, we're told, are unusual in the area. These pieces have been traced to the village's Kleinveski family. One of the village residents, Maria Kleinveski, had planned to create a chamber of antiquities, as revealed in her diaries and her correspondence with the State Archaeological Museum in Warsaw. She likely acquired the Osiris sculpture when, in failing health, she spent part of 1904 at a fashionable resort near Cairo, and she visited Alexandria. Fate had other plans. The Kleinveskis hastily moved to Warsaw in 1942 to flee from the Nazis, who then confiscated their belongings. We don't know what happened to Maria. Her son, though, did pass away in World War II. I don't know if that means he was fighting in World War II or not. It's not clear from the article. So here we've got the statue from another direction. Osiris is the god of fertility, the afterlife, death, and resurrection, typically shown with green skin, the beard of a pharaoh, and a distinctive crown holding a crook and a flail. His brother Set chopped him into pieces. His wife Isis brought him back to life by wrapping him, making him the first to be associated with the wrapping of the mummy. Experts at the National Museum in Lublin, along with the archaeologists at the University of Warsaw, have confirmed the authenticity of the bronze Osiris sculpture, which dates from the 1st century BCE, and also they've got the bust of Bacchus, which dates from the 1st century CE, and they think it's likely a fragment of a larger sculpture. Quote, capturing the trace of a valuable collection that was lost years ago is of great importance for science, cultural heritage, and the development of tourism. Oh, so it is specifically engagement beads on the piece of jewelry giving a token representing an engagement. Right, so it's very much, it is just what it sounds like. Excellent. Thank you. There's a dig in Lincoln that's expected to unearth significant finds. The Haw Hill site, spelt Haw before anybody gets spicy, the Haw Hill site in the city's Swanpool area has never been previously excavated, but there's going to be a 4-week dig at the site in June at the start of a significant years-long project. They've already found archaeology and finds at ground level. They found prehistoric flint and Roman tiles. Documents show that the Haw Hill site had in the past been the location of a variety of buildings and structure. History and archaeology enthusiasts have been invited to join the excavation, and there's going to be training given in field archaeology and investigation skills for those who wish to take part. Dr. Derwin Gregory, who's the Archaeology and Heritage Programme leader, said that the dig will give participants a chance to gain practical experience in excavation. Quote, "We hope the research project will uncover new information about the site's past, and we look forward to seeing the excavation grow and evolve in years to come." The assistant director for Western Growth Corridor at the City of Lincoln said, quote, "We hope the project will bring many benefits in terms of skills, learning, and a greater understanding of the historic value of the area." Skeletons found in Pompeii ruins reveal the death by earthquake, not just the ancient eruption of Vesuvius. Now there's a reason why there's no pictures. Heavy use of human remains in the articles I've seen. So if you do go and click on it, that's your warning. 2 skeletons have been buried beneath a collapsed wall in the Pompeii archaeological site that points to them having died due to powerful earthquakes that accompanied the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in the first centuries. These men are believed to be at least 55 years old, and they are found in the Casti Amanti, or the House of Chaste Lovers. They are found beneath a wall that collapsed just before the area was covered in volcanic material. Quote, "In recent years, we have realized that there were violent, powerful seismic events that were happening at the time of the eruption." This is from Gabriel Zutragel, who is the director of the archaeological park at Pompeii. "New techniques and methodology," quote, "allow us to understand better the inferno that in 2 days completely destroyed the city of Pompeii, killing many inhabitants. More than 1,300 victims have been found at the site, which is just the south of Naples, over the last 250 years. Staying with Rome, museum workers have stumbled on 2,000 missing fragments of a Roman wall painting while restoring an ancient theatre. We can see some bits of them in this picture. This is a Roman mural in the city of Cartagena on the southern eastern coast of Spain. They claim these findings were made in an ancient theatre, among the best preserved pieces of wall painting from the Roman Empire. This theatre was excavated in 1988 and it's been restored to its former glory, and since 2008 has housed an open-air museum. But it did turn out that the site was hiding some secrets that have just been unearthed. These fragments were discovered by an accident during restoration work on the theatre's portico, which is towards the back of the stage. These pieces are going to join another 1,500 fragments that were found in 2006. Historians hope to be able to reconstruct the original composition and to restore the mural. Details are hard to make out at the moment. It appears to be 3 main pictorial groups, and researchers have detected human figures as well as linear design features. Because of this discovery, archaeologists have plans to continue a dig in the garden that once lay behind the stage. They hope they're going to find specific plant species, maybe even ancient pipes that might have allowed water to flow through the fountains. So whoever is in charge of this, I'm guessing they like a jigsaw. If not, sucks to be them, because this is like the best jigsaw puzzle ever. A team of archaeologists from the University of Granada, the Consortium of Historical and Artistic and Archaeological Monumental City of Merida, and the Polytechnic University of Valencia have analysed the remains of a Roman purse found at the Casa del Metreo in Merida, Spain. So we've got the Casa there. That's the picture at the top on the left. It's hard to pick left and right just then, but there we go. So this purse was found at the Casa del Metreo, which is a high-status domus or home that dates from the end of the 1st or beginning of the 2nd century AD. This domus consisted of peristyles or courtyards with columns, ornate mosaics that decorated the interior rooms. This purse was found in the remains of the private bath area. This specifically in room number 44, which was a service area for the domus. According to a study published by the journal Archaeologia, the purse, known as a bertha, is the second only example to be discovered on the entire Iberian Peninsula. Textile fragments from the purse were identified by conducting a microscopic analysis of the coins. The textiles were made of Egyptian linen. So whether this means that the purse originated in Egypt or the Orient, or whether the materials were imported and then woven locally, they don't know. An examination of the coins and the archaeological context they were found in places them to the end of the 3rd century AD, which coincides with an abandonment phase of the domus, which occurred during the late 3rd century and early 4th century AD. This is for the mosaic. Yes, but at the same time, jigsaws are fun. But yeah. Yes, you're right. Better. I think in some ways we did look at those objects that were being reconstructed using robots and AI and all of that sort of stuff. So I do wonder if that will play a part. A metal detectorist in Wales has found a, quote, adorable bowl with an ox head that could reveal a lost Roman settlement. You can see the little ox head bowl. It's just there. That's in the picture. So a stockpile of Iron Age vessels, Roman coins, and this bowl with a handle crafted to look like an ox. It was declared to be these finds were declared to be treasure on April the 28th. They were found in 2019 by a man called John Matthews. He says, quote, I feel honoured to have found something so unique that is linked to Wales and to our ancestors. This is a statement that he gave to Museum Wales. The trophy found contained a number of vessels dating to the Iron Age. There were wooden tankards, a bucket with copper alloy fittings, and this bowl with a metal handle in the shape of an ox head, complete with intact horns. There were also some Roman artifacts, 2 copper alloy saucepans, which might have been buried during AD 43. There were also a hoard of Roman coins and 2 silver artifacts from the 17th century. We are told the archaeological curator at the Museum of Wales, National Museum of Cardiff in Wales, said, we nicknamed the ox Bovril. With Matthews, the person who found its help, we excavated what turned out to be a rather confusing vessel hoard. When the tips of these horns started to emerge, we thought, penannular brooch, maybe. Imagine our surprise when we flicked off the mud and exposed Bovril's adorable little face, little Bovril. The discovery of 2 coin horns in the same field in the general vicinity at the Roman town of Caerwent is exciting and significant. These discoveries are also important for understanding events happening in southeast Wales and around the time when the Romans left. The National Museum of Wales has shown interest in acquiring the artifacts, according to the statement. So let's see if they do. I will let you know, and we can go see it, hopefully. This is fabulous. A rare Ming Dynasty box, which was in a dusty attic for decades, has just gone for $350,000 at auction. Apparently, it was bought back in 1946 from Sotheby's for just £79. This is an exceptionally rare Chinese Ming Dynasty croissant box. It's sold at Druat's in Berkshire in the UK for £288,000, which is $358,000. It was expected to fetch between £6,000 and £10,000. So that is also a 2,880% increase from the high estimate, or a more than 1.5 million% markup from the mere £19 or $79 that it was originally bought for. A private collector in Asia defeated 8 other telephone bidders to secure the winning bid. The box was the top result of 87 lots from Radcliffe's collection, all of which sold for a total of £947,000 or $1.18 million. Other highlights include a Qing Dynasty translucent jadeite dish, a Song Dynasty celadon ribbed vase, and a Song Dynasty Juneo dish. The collector paid between £7 or $29 and £42 or $174 for these treasures when he acquired them in the 1940s. Acquired as in, I think, purchased at auction. So it's worth remembering that there are Ming Dynasty products that are being produced in China at the time that they are produced for an international market. There is a passion for chinoiserie that happens in Europe. There's a fascination for it, and so there are items that are created as trade items at this stage and before. So I don't know who originally bought them, and presumably brought them to Europe, and then they travelled or handed down to families. So it's entirely, I would need to look into it, but it's entirely possible this was produced to be a consumer commodity from its origin point, if that makes sense. But I don't know that for sure. Oh, Qing should be pronounced Ching. Apologies. Thank you, Jarrod. Yes, and also there was a thought process that the really fine bone china. There was this story that went around. I want to say in the kind of late Stuart period, that what had to happen was that they would bury the goods to make the china bowl, for example, and then 2 generations later, so the grandparents would bury the thing, and then 2 generations later, the grandchildren would dig it up and then sell it. That was how they said that this kind of fine bone china was made. Two Rembrandts were hidden in a private collection for 200 years. Now they are headed to auction. These are 2 recently discovered Rembrandt paintings that are up for auction at Christie's in London next month, and they are thought that together they will fetch between about $6.3 million and $10 million. They have been out of public view for nearly 200 years when they were last auctioned by Christie's, which just goes to show how long Christie's has been in operation for. There's a couple portrayed in the works. They come from a prominent family in Leiden in the Netherlands, and their son married the daughter of Rembrandt's uncle. That couple then had a son who is believed to have trained with Rembrandt as an artist. These portraits remained in the family until 1760, and then they were then auctioned off. They have then remained in a private collection in the UK, and they were completely unknown to scholars ever since. Scholars from the Rijksmuseum in the Netherlands have analysed the paintings, and in June they're going to tour New York and Amsterdam before being auctioned during Christie's Classic Week in the week starting July the 1st. The International Deputy Chairman of Old Master Paintings at Christie's called the re-emergence of the portraits one of the most exciting in the field in recent years. Quote, painted with a deep sense of humanity, these are among the smallest and most intimate portraits that we know of by Rembrandt, adding something new to our understanding of him as a portraitist of undisputed genius. They are very beautiful, and like many of you, I do hope that they will end up in a museum. Yes, I hope a museum gets them. It would be wonderful to see them. Or if they do go into a private collector's hands, somebody who is willing to lend them to museums, so that we don't, as you rightly say, just have to take a good look and then not see them for 200 years. They're fabulous. And here we go. We have got some Qing Dynasty jars that were bought for $25 at a thrift store that have been sold at auction for $74,000. Oh boy, oh boy. These were purchased as part of a batch of ceramics from a London thrift store for £20. These are two imperial Chinese dokai, lotus and chrysanthemum jars produced in the 18th century, and they have fetched £59,800 or $74,500 at Rosebery's auction house in London last Tuesday. The seller of the jars, who has not been named, is, quote, a passionate collector of ceramic objects. They saw the jars at a thrift shop last year and knew they had to acquire them. I think anyone who's in the presence of imperial Chinese porcelain, regardless of their experience, will feel drawn to them on some level. When the seller researched the inscription found on the label of the bottom of the jars, which says Qianlong, I think that might be how it's pronounced. I apologise if not. They realised the potential significance of the porcelain and took it to an auction house for inspection. Quote, my heart sinks when I read of Chinese objects being sold through charity shops for a mere pittance, Forrest said. So this from the auction house. But he added that Chinese porcelain is a very specialised field, and given the donations charities received, charity workers can be forgiven for overlooking them. Tell me about it. Tell me about it, Dawn. It's when people say, someone walks in like a fabulous garment, and I go, that is fabulous. Where did you get it from? They're like, oh, I thrifted it. When I go to like vintage shops, everything, for a start, nothing fits me. Second of all, I never see anything that I like, ever. Oh, Michael, thank you for that. If anyone's trying to find something, you should know that with Chinese porcelain, it is traditional to use the stamps of previous dynasties to associate your work with them. All the more reason, if you think you found something, you need to get it properly checked and accredited. Yes, so not to trick people, but to say who you're referencing and show reverence to another dynasty. Thank you for that further information. But of course, for those who are buying things hoping to make a quick buck, you're gonna have to get it checked out properly. Dawn, you're one of those people. You're one of them. You're one of the blessed. You're one of the blessed. Sir Walter Scott's desk seal. Desk seal is going up for auction. It's valued and expected to go for £18,000 at a Scottish auction. It's been valued as being worth between £12,000 and £18,000. It's a hand carved seal, and it's thought that it connects to water being knighted in 1820. It's set in lapis lazuli, gold, and amethyst stones, and it bears the Scott family armorial. It's a beautiful thing. So Sir Walter Scott, who wrote Ivanhoe, is a prolific letter writer, we are told, and it's thought that this was likely used for the letters that were penned to George IV, which helped to pave the way for this monarch's return to Scotland. The first time a monarch returned there since 1650, when Charles II had stayed in Holyrood House. Walter helped to organise this royal visit just 2 years after the Scottish insurrection of 1820, and there was a whole tartan pageantry that went on, which helped secure the kilt's place as the country's national dress. The seals are part of the Matrix collection, which was gathered over several decades by the late David Morris. Isn't it a fabulous thing? But this is not the only. The next thing is, I think, arguably, this took my breath away when I saw this. Look at it. Look at it. A Philadelphia man paid $6,000 for cracked church windows he saw on Facebook. Turns out they're from Tiffany, and they are worth $500,000. This is the Pennsylvania Antiques Collector, Paul Brown, decided to salvage 2 rose windows, cracked and covered in years of dust and grime. He got them for just £6,000. The rose windows are by the renowned New York decorative arts firm, and they once crowned St. Paul's Presbyterian Church, and they have now, as we can see, have been restored to their original glory. Sorry, going on. So they are being sold. They're expected to. There's going to be a bidding war when they hit the auction block on May the 18th. So that's already happened. I haven't seen the update. I'll give you the update next time around. Brown arrived just in time to save the glass from being demolished during the 1901 building's ongoing conservation to the new Emmanuel Christian Centre. Quote, "Do you want to get these windows out before the sledgehammer takes them?" Brown was asked after he inquired about the windows on Facebook Marketplace. Look at them. Look at them. Will you look at them? Will you look at them? With the instinct that he might have something valuable in his hands, he took the windows straight to Freeman's auction house to be appraised. They were commissioned from Tiffany Studios around 1905. These are radial windows that contain a spectacular kaleidoscope of colour, with cooler hues at the centre going out to purple and navy tones at the border. Quote, "The intricacy of these works is stunning, and it's meaningful to bring to market pieces that have such a deep, meaningful history in Philadelphia. The windows will be included in Freeman's upcoming design auction in Philadelphia, which begins at 11 a.m. on May the 18th. These are phenomenal. Just utterly breathtaking. So this is some 21st century stuff happening to old stuff. An ancient bronze owl has been damaged by a visitor to the Minneapolis Institute of Art. This is like, you know, when you read about someone doing something and it makes you feel sweaty in shared anxiety. This is what this is for me. A visitor tripped over. I am a tripper. I'm a tripper and a faller. A visitor tripped at the Minneapolis Institute of Art and has done damage to the, quote, Pillsbury owl, which is a 12th or 13th century BCE bronze owl-shaped vessel. It was at the entrance of the museum's exhibition, Eternal Offerings, Chinese Ritual Bronzes, when the damage occurred. A museum spokesperson confirmed the vessel has since been removed from the show for further assessment and conservation. The extent of the damage remains unclear. No visitors or staff were harmed during the incident, and the museum will continue to monitor and enhance measures to prevent accidents. In the owl's place now sits a pair of bronze winged dragons from the 4th or 5th century CE, which were already on view and were moved from the second gallery of the exhibition. I really hope that they are behind something safe now. I think when they were selling them, they didn't clock onto what the stained glass they had were because they were so filthy, is the way it's being presented, that it took cleaning up to realize what they had, I believe. Yeah, I mean, you're not that's going to be one of those moments, like when you think about that's a story that gets told at your wedding. That is a story that gets told at your wedding. It's my worst nightmare. It's actually it's when I walk in somewhere and I see things are close and I have a bag on, I just immediately flop sweat immediately, going, oh no, this is how it happens. This is how it happens. Oh, have you seen this? Have you seen this? The Tiffany windows, Leonda, we've got the results. Tiffany windows sold for $100,000 each. Boy, howdy. I will do a proper form update on that. Yes. Wowzers. Yeah, my hands are in my pockets. Pockets. I leave the bag in the cloakroom. Hi, yeah, wowie. Hate it so much. Right. Thieves have targeted a regional museum in the UK and they've made off with 12 precious historical artifacts. This is a museum in Sheffield. Thieves broke in last Sunday and stole 12 items relating to metalworking from the collection. They entered the Felem Island Museum, which is dedicated to Sheffield's past as an industrial hub for metalwork and steelmaking. It's thought that it was a carefully planned, quote, the historical significance of these items goes far beyond any financial value they hold. The span one of the first objects, hallmarked by Sheffield Assay Office to knives made by, they span one of the first objects hallmarked by Sheffield Assay Office to knives made by one of our last little masters, the much missed Stan Shaw. These are irreplaceable touchstones of Sheffield's rich history. Little mesters, rather than masters, is a term for local practitioners historically who were making small tools and cutlery. Other items that were taken including sterling silver coffee pot from 1773, a silver tea caddy from 1774, sculptures of a duckling, a heron, a dragonfly, and a kingfisher by the local Huddersfield scrap metal artist Jason Heppenstall. Quote, the articles stolen do not have any real sell-on value. To Sheffield museums and the stories they celebrate, these represent a far wider loss and are totally irreplaceable. This is the latest in a string of robberies in the city, and these criminals need to be stopped. Sheffield Museums and the South Yorkshire Police have made a plea to the public to come forward if they have any information that might lead to the recovery of the stolen objects, including if they see them surface for sale online. Yeah, this is, horrid. 5 men have been found guilty over a €113 million Dresden jewellery heist. This heist took place at the Green Vault Museum in 2019, and a German court has convicted them. This is the theft of 18th century jewels, and it's one of the most spectacular heists in the country's modern history, we're told. They have been given sentences of between 4 years and 4 months and 6 years and 3 months. One defendant was acquitted. That does feel short to me. The Dresden State Court ruled that the 5 men, aged between 24 and 29, all members of the same family, were responsible for this break-in on the 25th of November 2019. They stole 21 pieces of jewellery that contained more than 4,300 diamonds. The trial lasted 47 days. 100 witnesses gave evidence. The 5 men were convicted of particularly aggravated arson. What? In combination with dangerous bodily image, theft with weapons, damage to property, and intentional arson. The men started a fire shortly before the break-in to cut the power supply. They also set a car ablaze before fleeing to Berlin. So it's not just the theft. They've done arson as well. And they've done weapon stuff. There was a plea bargain agreed by 4 defendants who subsequently admitted their involvement in the crime through their lawyers. The 5th also confessed, but only to the procurement of objects such as the axes used to make holes in the museum display. The prosecutor has defended the plea bargain as being key to the majority of the stolen objects being returned, although politicians and media on Tuesday complained it had allowed too mild a sentence. Well, I think the sentence is very short. I agree. I think the sentence is very short. However, the stuff that they got back, like this bejeweled sword, for example, is that worth giving them shorter sentences? Would we have not seen this stuff again if we hadn't? I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, that is my last new news. That's what to think on. I think we now have my our ding dong, our one and only, and it's this. Boom! Archaeologists find a rock that's got a carved face at Benidorm's Roman fort. This, on top of, as well as the face, which we can see in the image, there is also a carving of a cornucopia and a ding dong merrily on live. So there is apparently a phallus. I'm thinking that the phallus is beside the face, to the right of the face. That looks like it might be a penis and testicles to me. This was part of a fort built by General Quinto Sertorio around the year 77 BCE during the Sertorian Wars. The fort was part of a chain of coastal military enclaves which monitored maritime trade. The carving measures 57 by 42 centimeters. However, the research suggests that part of the carving is incomplete, with the upper right section being being missing. The intention of the carving is unknown. It might have been graffiti or had a ritualistic purpose. The inclusion of the phallus suggests that it might have served to provide protection, as they did believe that the phallus was the embodiment of masculine genital power and was thus tokenistic of good fortune. Similarly, the cornucopia, or the horn of plenty. So many jokes about phalluses and horns in my mind. I'm not going to do it. This is not Wednesday. The face could represent a god or a goddess. So she's got the horn and the phallus at face height. Good. Many deities from the Roman pantheon are associated with harvest, prosperity, or spiritual abundance, often shown carrying a cornucopia in Roman reliefs with coins. There we go. So there we are. And now we're moving on to events and exhibitions. The Mosul Museum, the Jewels of Iraqi Heritage, has been rebuilt, refounded. This, we are told, is one of the most important museums in Iraq outside of Baghdad. It was founded in 1952 and it was destroyed by Daesh, who you may know as ISIS. The museum's history is ultimately linked to that of Mosul and its region. In June 2017, the Iraqi Ministry of Culture, Tourism and Antiquities noted the terrible state of the Mosul Cultural Museum and they asked for international assistance. Thus was born international solidarity to support the rehabilitation of the museum and its collections. That has been done. So if anybody is watching from Iraq, hello, welcome. If you get a chance to go to this museum, please do let me know what you think. The website looks fabulous. The stuff that's on display that's being shown through the website looks incredible. And as per all over the world, support your local museums. There are lots of heritage sites for various reasons, but principally because of a lack of visitors during the pandemic that are going under. If you want these places to remain in public hands, if you want them to remain the sites that they have been for you and for your families, visit your museums. Particularly the ones that you really favour, particularly the ones that don't get government funding. Visit your museums, show them your support. For my friends in Chicago, we have got Van Gogh, or Van Gogh, however you pronounce it, and the avant-garde, the modern landscape. This opened on May the 14th. It's already open, and it will be running until September the 4th, 2023, at the Art Institute of Chicago. So check that out. We have archaeology students have been doing excavation work at Arenberg Castle in Heverlee, Louvain. And they have spent a week on the estate as part of a field workshop. They obtained permission from the Flemish Heritage Agency to conduct excavations at the castle. This site is opening on archaeology days, which are being held over the long weekend. So coming up 26th, 27th and 28th of May. So if you are in and around Brussels, you're nearby to Arenberg Castle, go and check out one of the archaeology days. That looks pretty fabulous. And last but by no means least, at the Auckland Museum, there is an exhibition coming in next month. That's what's happening. June 2023, Egypt in the Time of the Pharaohs. So if you are in or around Auckland next month, then you have that to check out as well. Fabulous. Well, friends, that's what I have for you. We have been going for 2.5 hours. Thank you for sticking out with me. I'm very glad that you've taken the time to join the chat. I hope you've enjoyed this one. If you're here live or if you're watching on the playback, I hope you have found this useful. I will be seeing you hopefully as well on Friday for the live chat during the premiere, or in the comment section afterwards. Thank you once again for everybody who sent me articles. I've seen some coming in now, and it is 10:30. It is actually it's nearly 11 of my time. Brian, yes, I have been keeping an eye on the stuff coming out about Firebrand. I'm looking forward to it. The more pictures that come out, the costuming looks chef's kiss. Very good. So, but of course, I shall wait and see what I think when I get a chance to watch it. Well, friends, have a lovely rest of your Monday, whatever time it is for you, and also have a brilliant week, whatever you're doing. Do take care of yourselves, and I look forward to speaking to you all in my next video. But for now, have a great day and week. Bye-bye.